Welcome, everyone. Hello, Barry.
Hello.
I'm Anna Komenko, founder of Startup Dials. And today we're going to talk about getting PR coverage at CES. So I'm here with Barry Mayers, who agreed to join me and share his experience helping brands amplify their presence at CES. So welcome, Barry.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I've been to a few CESs, so it's great to share some of that insight.
No, great to have you here. So I pulled some numbers, and according to CES last year, they had 142,000 attendees, 1,400 startups at Eureka Park,
Oh my God.
and over 4,500 exhibitors overall. So the show is just growing every year, right? It's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's back. I mean, we're a few years removed from COVID now, so it's booming and buzzing.
Yeah. Well, and good to see that. Good to see that. So from my experience, and I exhibited with various brands at CES over the years, the investment to exhibit at CES requires at least 100,000 US in order to be on the main floor with a very, very humble booth. So Eureka probably, is slightly more affordable, but we kind of get the range, right? Especially if we're talking about startups. I mean, it's quite a
Yeah. I mean, actually, I think they go out of their way to keep it very affordable, but it, comes with its own challenges, of course.
No, 100%. But I mean, with all the logistics and traveling, the
Yeah, of
hotels and
course.
everything, you bring the team in, with all the samples and so on. So it is quite an investment, and obviously you want to make that investment be worth it, right? And well, from my perspective, getting press coverage is like one of the best ROIs brands can dream of. So having said that, many founders, they actually don't even think about press, right? They're so busy with the logistics, with the booth, that well, press is somewhere at the back burner. So
Yeah, and I mean, not only the booth and the logistics, but at the end of the day, CES is also a B2B show, and a lot of these startups are, looking for distribution and still working through the channel,
yeah.
getting on shelves. So sure, those meetings are critical too, of course.
Yeah. So, but just going back right to the PR side of it, obviously CES is a huge opportunity. And well, you've been attending for God knows how many years, and well, working with brands and bringing them right to CES and helping them amplify their presence. So, say tomorrow you get a call from a brand asking you, Barry, help us with the CES PR. And the show is like in 2 months. I think we're like sharp 2 months away from CES.
Yeah, it's coming up quick.
Like,
So
what do you tell them? Yeah, where do we start?
I mean, I think, above and beyond the investment you're going to have to put forward just to have the booth and get the shipping and the lodging and the travel and all of that, your opportunities are also going to be obviously guided a lot by the budget you have to spend on additional press events and dinners and blah, blah, blah. But I do believe, to a large extent for startups, they need to kind of temper their expectations and kind of recalibrate their opportunity at see kind of relationship building Verge. At the end of the day, NVIDIA, LG, Samsung, they're going to dominate the news coverage. Every year, there's a couple of startups that pop. I mean, last year it was that funky spoon that took your temperature or what have you, and it popped up on several best of lists. But you're really going to, I think, if you're a startup, and this kind of dovetails with probably your own timeline as a startup too, you may not be ready to have products in the hands of journalists while you're at CES. You should have demos ready, of course, but I think your first kind of macro approach should be to kind of recalibrate this around relationship building and the outreach and the communication that you create with the journalists that you communicate with is critical. And several journalists will tell you this as well, because especially for startups, it's really about the follow-ups.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the macro advice piece I would have for
Yeah.
a startup.
But let's say, there's obviously, an opportunity always to go to an agency, a PR agency, who can help you with the CES as scoped out project. But I also, well, from experience, right, there are different ranges of those agencies, or can brands even do it independently and reach out maybe to, like a targeted list of journalists or media themselves and hope that those are going to show up? Like, what should be their approach, you say?
As a general matter, their approach should be to hire an expert if they have budget to do it, I really think. And I'm not a huge, supporter of PR monthly retainers throughout the year for small companies that only have 1 or 2 launches during the year. And I'm not, as you know, specifically a PR person. I work with brands on influencers marketing and I produce events. And so I kind of fall into this weird, not your typical like PR person. But with respect to CES, they know the lay of the land. Now, to kind of peel that back one layer to your specific question, there are great independent freelancers who have spent years at companies, years at PR firms, major PR firms, who are available, who you're able to retain, hire just for a period of a few months in the lead up and the follow up time frame. So I'd certainly, suggest and recommend that if that's possible, and of course they're going to charge you less too than, Edelman or Weber Shandwick. But I do think, if you have the budget for it, it's extremely helpful to hire someone who not only knows the lay of the land of CES, but has these relationships already.
Yeah, no, I think it's super valuable because I can tell you every time I exhibited at CES, we were always going after agencies. You're a startup. Imagine you're in China, you're outside of the US, you don't know the landscape. You don't even know how to find those independents.
And I don't know if there are takeaways from our little conversation here, or if people reach out to you, or if they want to reach out to me, but they're my pals. And like I said, I'm not specifically PR anyway. So if somebody needs some, referrals, there are people that I think get it. Mm-hmm. And I trust, and certainly know their way around CES, and certainly have fantastic relationships.
But then let's talk a little bit about influencers, right? This is your sort of bread and butter today. Obviously, a lot of tech YouTubers are going to be walking the floor. Shall the brands be reaching out to them early on, or sort of, reach out to them as they see one of the, popular faces walking the floor and asking them to come by? And
that's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough. Hey, there goes Tech with Brett. Grab him, bring him over. And it's funny because I do work and I help brands manage influencers and what have you, and they all have a story. Marcus Brownlee started TikTok right then and there, 8 million views, and he didn't even charge me. Well, that does happen, and more power to you if that happened to you. Influencers are huge at CES now. Influencers are huge everywhere now in the whole scheme of things. They are a bucket right next to the media bucket right now. It is a different world. It is generally pay to play. It is a different world in terms of outreach. Not significantly in terms of the information and the approach you want to have. I mean, they're similar, but in terms of finding them and reaching them, you'll be lucky to find a PR person who's kind of able to do both. But I think, for startups, there's kind of a general sense that they should understand that everyone matters, right? So big press, small press, big influencer, little influencer, who is, more likely to have room on his schedule, more likely to be amenable to creating content for influencer world is pay to play. I mean, that, but there are great influencers, and there's actually a real trend toward the smaller influencers too, because theoretically, the data shows they have stronger communities and more enthusiastic followers and what have you. So, just as you shouldn't kind of dismiss a small journalist, you shouldn't dismiss a small influencer.
All right. So what you're saying,
to your macro point, reaching them is kind of a separate but almost equal exercise now.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. What you're saying. Also, you want to have a list of influencers. You want to reach out to them in advance. You want to have allocated budget.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you're saying is pay for play mostly, or all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, you're going to give me a little time at the end to talk a little bit more specifically about what we do, but at the risk of kind of interjecting here, I mean, we actually have a little matchmaking service where we, reach out to the tech influencer community just to see if they're interested in coming by and meeting with you. Unless where we kind of manage it end to end for this end off, but in terms of just getting in touch with them and getting in front of them and creating that awareness, we can help with that.
Yeah. And what are the chances that, the influencer, or just going back to press, like the journalist, like what makes the successful pitch, right? Because I would assume that, press as well as influencers, they got tons and tons of messages and emails going their way prior to CES. I mean, we mentioned, right, 4,500 exhibitors, 1,400 startups. I mean, that's quite a lot. So you do want to, do your best, right, and try and stand out in order to get really booked if possible.
I mean, I think the process kind of consists of the pitch, the confirmation, and then the follow-up, right? It's kind of a three-part process. I mean, every journalist will tell you, and I did speak to a few before we got on here, be as brief as possible. I mean, they will respect that. Their inboxes are inundated and overloaded with CES pitches. They don't necessarily need a personal introduction. They don't need you to tell them how they are. Being brief, be even more brief, because they'll get it. They'll see that and they'll be like, this person understands what's happening here, So be brief, be persistent. With respect to this idea of you're there to build relationships as a startup, as opposed to specifically, get on best of lists and what have you, then, even an email communication that doesn't end up in a meeting can be a win. So be brief, be appropriately persistent. One of the other things I think is, they'll all tell you, try to know your journalists, right? But bandwidth is, we're all bandwidth challenged, right? So, just getting that list of press that you want to reach out to and contact is challenging enough, depending on whether you have some help and PR side. Knowing what their beat is and what their coverage is can be even more challenging. To the extent you can, it's really key, right? I mean, if you're a kitchen brand in the smart kitchen, the Venetian, then you should know at some level who the key reporters covering, smart kitchen technology are. But the piece they don't really say as much is, if you own it, don't sweat it, right? So, hey, if you're telling them, listen, hey, I'm not sure you're the right person, again, being brief, but I'm not sure you're the right person, but this is my first CES or my second CES. People like to help people. So be human, be brief, be persistent, appropriately persistent. Have a process. If they're going to meet, if you do get a meeting, sort of temper your expectations. Again, as I said earlier, it's for startups, especially, it's kind of all about the follow-ups, but also be super thorough, and you'd be surprised how much, that will resonate. Hey, don't just give them your booth number, take a screenshot of that floor map, interactive floor map. Tell them that the huge Sony banner, things like that.
Yeah, so they're easier to find, right? Especially,
they will really appreciate. They will really appreciate things like that. I even think, at some level, and we're all, all brands are competitive with other brands, but if you're a smart stove and there's a smart barista next to you and you know them, or there's opportunities to kind of be strategic and kind of tag team. So hey, you can meet with this cool smart blender and then come next door and meet with our smart gas grill, and if they get the sense that you're trying to make their life easier and that you understand how insane CES is. Another piece of this, right, is know your geography is a tip that any journalist will tell you. CES is massive, and of course it spreads way beyond the LVCC, the convention center.
Yeah, maybe
if you're not in the LVCC.
Yeah, maybe we could talk a little bit about, what if you're not exhibiting at CES, right? So there are some, press opportunities outside of CES that are happening during the show as well, right? So there's obviously CES Unveiled, but that's only for exhibitors. But right after it, right, there is PepCom, there is showstoppers that are happening like 1 or 2 days after the CES
So
Unveiled.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I don't know. PepCom is usually on the second day, and Showstoppers is usually on the third. If you don't know, these are tabletop events, so you just come in with all your gear and you put your, even the most novice, if you will, startup should have, a tablecloth branded or whatever, the basics. But these are tabletop events. You don't have to build booths and what have you. They're expensive, and outside of major events like CES and IFA and MWC, Mobile World Congress, when they do standalone events, I'm not a huge fan because of the cost. But again, there to build relationships and to get as many contacts started as possible, so that the follow-ups, so that you have so many follow-ups. And that, I think those shows can be really helpful. They're swamped. Your table will be you're almost guaranteed to be 2 or 3 deep at your table for the hours of those tabletop events. So, whether you have a booth or not, again, budget permitting, I think at CES, it's usually a good idea for a startup to try and do one of those. Now, I wouldn't do more than one because the overlap is huge from event to event. But one point I want to make in this context also is, even if you're just going there without a booth or without doing one of those events, but you have already planned to be there and walking around and checking it out, then you should be trying to get meetings and leverage the time you're there as well. Just because you're not doing PepCom doesn't mean you can't. The things I like to tell companies all the time is, CES is 24/7, right? If someone wants to meet with you an hour before the show floor opens in the lobby of Central Hall, grab it. And of course, that's the type of opportunity for companies that aren't exhibiting as well. So I think not only if you don't have a booth, consider doing one of those press events, but if you don't have a booth, you should still be working it.
Yeah, definitely. Plenty of networking opportunities, right? There are also like some of the bigger brands would be organizing their own parties that you can also get on the list and join there and meet some of the press.
So again, great point. Again, CES is 24/7. I know you and I talked before earlier. We were at I think it was an Amazon party, cocktail party after the show floor, and I met a couple of companies that I do business with that have become clients. I think CESpartylist.com is actually a real thing. Less than the big Samsung party, which it can be hard to get invited to. If you're looking through like CES Party List, and there's something that's more categorically associated with what you do. I'll throw out AI, of course, because AI. But if there's you know, if you're Smart Home and Parks Associates, a smart home, really well-known research firm, is doing something at night. So don't miss those opportunities. If you're on the show floor, don't think your day is over, you know, when the show floor ends and you go get a bite to eat and, you know, either go out with your friends and party or go back to your hotel room. I used to do the former, now I do the latter, but it's 24/7, you know, opportunities, be aware of opportunities to meet with key press for breakfast, for coffee, for cocktails, work the nighttime.
And even after the show, right?
You're going to be exhausted at the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's only once a year. So you kind of want to take an opportunity and maximize it, right? I always say, like, don't think the show is over when the doors close, right? Even from the social media standpoint and your presence as a brand, try to, you know, take as much footage as possible during the show, right? And create some kind of like highlights that you can post across social media with the appropriate hashtags, right? So that it's not only that you rely on influencers and press to talk about you, but you also sort of move a little bit the needle.
Another great and kind of under the radar point. Not only, you know, share as much as you can while you're at the show, and if you're using the right, you know, hashtag CES 25 or whatever there's usually a couple that get popular. If you're using those, you know, you'll get seen even if you're a startup with a small following. If you're a startup with a small following at CES, you're something pretty tech heavy, and it's the early adopter enthusiast community who will be following along on social media. So, you know, don't miss that opportunity. And similar, as you mentioned, capture as much of it as you can, because, you know, as a general rule, content is king, and social obviously is critically important. So, you know, just keep capturing it. And even if it's not for a day or a week or a couple weeks after the event, when you get a chance to kind of cut and paste and edit that a little bit, you'll have it, and it'll be important. It'll be valuable to you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but in general, like going back to CES, right, that we were talking about exhibiting, like you have startups exhibiting, non-exhibiting, and those shows for non-exhibitors. One point I would want to mention is that it only makes sense when you really have something fresh, new, and innovative, right? Because obviously there's going to be so much noise during the show that, I mean, you only want to invest when you have actually something worth talking about, I want to say, right? Like your big launch.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are kind of levels, right? I mean, yes, you don't necessarily want to go all in a manner that you might if you had something and it was ready and it was going to be shipping super soon, or Kickstarter was kicking off the day CES ends, or Indiegogo. You know, your strategy definitely has to be a little different. You know, if you're still kind of prototyping and you're 6 and 8 months out, which is fine. I mean, most of the new tech at CES is 6 to 8 months out. Some of it a lot farther out. But I think one of the key points in this context on it is to be honest, right? To be, you know, I'm a big fan of kind of, you know, story over specs, so that, you know, press want to hear what your new device is going to do, how it's going to help people, how it's going to change the game, versus how fast it is, or how, you know, how big the hard drive is. But again, you know, and I know a lot of, I mean, when you're at Ziff Davis for 5 years and at Engadget for a couple of years, like I've been, you know these journalists really well, and it will resonate with them if you do this properly. And we covered some of that earlier in terms of being brief, but, you know, being honest and respectful of how insane they're going to be at CES, how busy they're going to be, is super important. And, you know, there are ways to get a ton of value out of CES, even if you're 8 months, 10 months, a year down the road. And there are ways to do it differently if you're ready to go.
Yeah. No, it's always like on the top three questions: the price and the timeline. When is it going to be commercially available? Right? It's always
Oh
there.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But again, yeah, just, be honest with these folks. You're, to go back to my macro point, you want to start building these and maybe your founder's done this a few times, maybe they have some of these relationships already, but generally speaking, I think if you're a startup, great opportunity to kind of start this process properly. The response you get and the coverage you ultimately get will, to a large extent, be determined by doing it properly out of the box.
One thing we haven't talked about is samples, right? Because, I mean, it's either the press is requesting for some demo units if they're available. They're always asking. If not, can they have a demo at the show, during the show? Then also, maybe we could talk about the importance of having extra demo units in case there is an opportunity somewhere at the like a podcast station or a TV station where the sample could be brought into. And often, just one note to mention, right? Because often these products that are launching at CES, they're not yet ready for production. So obviously, many things can go wrong.
Well, again, that's why it's so important to be honest with the press. Taking that kind of in reverse, we talk about CES being, these podcast opportunities and stuff. I mean, that's another great thing that you should be, really trying your best, bandwidth permitting, to, guys like Dave Graveline and Into Tomorrow has been doing his podcast every day. And you'll see the podcast studio set up as you enter the South Hall and what have you. But, trying to make sure you're not missing, and some of them are free and some of them are paid, to demo units specifically. I mean, you hopefully be prepared to demo and have a prototype there, and again, being honest about where it is on the production timeline. I don't think it's super critical to have them on the ready to hand out and have journalists and influencers walk away with. I mean, at some respect, they can only fit so much in whatever bag they've grabbed from whatever exhibit they have. And, I think I think they understand and respect more, the going up and getting it to them, not just when it's ready, but to be reviewed, but also just as a matter of working with how they work. And, to that end, and we've touched on it a little bit, again, the process is so important. So, the consistency of how and when you follow up and creating kind of the systems and of maybe, hey, here's a form, for collecting addresses and tracking, who and when you're going to be sending review units. It's so critical to be consistent in all of those ways. But, extra demos too. I mean, yeah, you may want, again, depends if you're in a 40 by 40 or a booth or a 10 by 10 or a table in the corner. But sure, I mean, in an ideal world, you'd have a couple of extra in case you have to run over and do a podcast, depending on, whether your device can be held in your hand or needs 3 people.
Yeah, fair enough. And I do like your point once again about the follow-up, right? That there's got to be also like post-CES plan, so that it's not only, because many of us are, either getting sick or going on vacation right after CES and coming back, and then it's, beginning of the year, Q1. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody gets the well-known thing. I mean, again, I mean, those, but not just for those reasons, but, also because of, and we touched on this later, I mean, a very high percentage of them are going to be really kind of racing to get their stories about LG's new transparent TV out, and what is NVIDIA doing with AI and robots, and covering keynotes and announcements from the major brands that as I said earlier, tempering your expectation and understanding where you fit into the timeline if you're a startup is important.
Yeah, agree. And sort of building a relationship, right? Not only showing up when you're ready to go, but also like keeping in touch with those folks and checking in every now and then, so that they start even kind of remembering the name of your startup, the name of your product, and getting a little bit on their radar, and also getting a little bit more familiar with you. I think then this is
and I mean,
outcome.
That goes back to a little bit of this notion of knowing who these journalists are, right? I mean, you can only do so much, and you want to prioritize your time. But if you get to the level of, hey, I saw you covered this, and we're kind of similar. If you're familiar with some of their coverage, or if, you can make some of those types of meaningful connections with their work. I mean, that's huge. That's fantastic.
Yeah, agree. Well, Barry, we're coming up on time, really, and I think
yeah. You told me it was going to go real fast.
Yeah, I mean, I found it incredibly valuable. I hope those who joined and listened found it valuable as well. But before we wrap up, Barry, tell everyone how they can work with you, where they can find you, connect with you.
So we do a couple things, and I can be reached at barry@techfluence.us. In the past, prior to COVID, I was primarily a producer of big events. Several of them were kind of consumer facing, which was kind of a new thing at the time. But during COVID, everybody pivoted. And, what we're focused on right now is on the event side. The first pivot was kind of understandable. We do virtual media and press briefings. And what we're doing there is keeping it super simple. So we're not trying to replace any of your other things. But we're trying to complement your other activations with a really simple but yet robust platform that you can understand. You don't have to spend hours learning how to use it. It's not in the metaverse, and it's just a great way to kind of share information and engage with press and influencers inexpensively without a ton of time. And then the other pivot during COVID, of course, when there were no events, was we started managing a number of ways that primarily small and mid-sized brands work with influencers. It's very end-to-end, from outreach to negotiation to managing it, and of course measuring how those campaigns perform. So those are our two primary areas that we're having fun doing. We just did an event yesterday. We have an event on December 17th, a virtual event for press and influencers. It's our CES preview, and that's really designed. It's a little late in the cycle, but one of the things we talked about earlier that we didn't mention here is that you want to start early. Obviously, that's like tip number one for brands, but you don't want to stop either. There's no reason that maybe somebody can't squeeze you in, or you exchange communications. They say, hey, I'm already booked, but you've made that connection. So our December 17th event, to that end, is really designed to help you make those connections and literally get meetings scheduled while you're for when you get to Vegas. So you're kind of a little ahead of the game there. So that's what we do. I've been in the space. I love CES because it's kind of like a reunion, and I get to see all my pals. From over the years. I don't know if we have 1 second. The tip I would leave the PR piece in general is, do everything you can to stay healthy. Have water with you everywhere. I mean, these are basics, but comfortable shoes, pack your bags with healthy, bars and power bars and all of that stuff, so that you're not eating pizza and hamburgers from the stand in the middle of the Venetian. It's just, those are really overlooked, but really super important things to remember.
Agree. Well, I hope to see you very, very soon, Barry.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining, everyone. And connect with us on LinkedIn, and I'll see you at the next session, which is actually also going to be dedicated to CES, but the next one is going to be dedicated to distributors and retailers. So meeting them at the floor. It's going to be a good one.
Good luck in Vegas, everyone. And remember that unlike Vegas, typically for CES, what happens in Vegas shouldn't stay in Vegas.
Well, thank you so much, Barry.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Okay.